You there?
Yes.
So I love this film. I desperately wanted to talk to you about this because we're all about art. We're all about everything that's happening for us for movie reviews and more. And I'm like, I've got to meet this young lady who directed this. This is just a fabulous film. And congratulations on some of the awards that you have won throughout some of the festivals. That's really good. And I never thought about, finding out what happened to Thomas Kinkade or anything like that. But this is great.
Thank
Why did you come about doing this? Even though I read the press notes on it, I just really wanted. Why did you really want to do this? Because it's a great documentary.
Yeah, thank you so much for the kind words. I really appreciate that.
I don't say it to be kind. I say it because it's true.
Thank you. Well, so my producing partner, Tim Rummel, and I had been looking for a film to do together for quite some time. And some friends of ours in the art world told us, we've heard that there might be something kind of unusual and interesting about Thomas Kinkade. And I had been familiar with his painter of light works and his persona from the 90s. And so my initial reaction was one of skepticism. But Tim went and got in touch with the estate, and they basically said, why, yes, in addition to these, thousands of and thousands of artworks and hundreds of thousands of photographs and tens of thousands of hours of video and hundreds of hours of audio cassette tape that he started recording in 1974 when he was 16. We also have this vault. And that was the moment that we all just lit up and we were like, okay, there's definitely a story here. And then when I was researching, getting more into the research part of it, I started seeing that Kincaid's life was sort of touching on all of these American, historical and cultural moments in such a way that would allow for us to ask big questions like what is art and who gets to decide, or the politicization of taste, or the costs of turning yourself into a brand. I mean, all of these I think are still really relevant questions today. And since, I really am interested in making films that talk about deeper human and social themes, but through the lens of a compelling character, I thought this was a great story.
You did a fabulous job, obviously, and I kept thinking, my God, all the stuff that she had to go through for research. That, oh my goodness,
I
I
would,
don't know how you did it,
I
but
had
I
a
was like,
team.
really, wow.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do, first of all, we did this in record time. So, like, we started filming in February of 2022 and we delivered in March of 2023 when we premiered at South by
What?
Southwest. So, yeah,
That's nuts.
it's
That's
totally
incredible.
insane. I 0 stars, do not recommend. I would never do it again. But I had a team, obviously you have to. Um, and I had like an associate editor, Christina Sun Kim, who I basically told, you know, you are going to own the archive. And she did an amazing job, just like logging and marking everything. And so that even when she had left the project and I was the last editor standing, I was still able to find pieces of archive that I was like, oh my God, and I put them in the final film. So, it was a really concerted team effort. And yeah, I worked with great people. Veronica Pinkham was my co-editor. And I had a couple of other people come on at different points to help with the editing. But it was a lot. It was a
I
lot.
always tell people it takes an average of 7 years to do a documentary. So
Oh.
for you, I mean, that's just not possible. Did you not know that it takes about 7 years to do a
No,
documentary?
I mean, I know that it should take more time than it did. And like I said, I'm never going to do that again. It was a little too much.
What did you learn from doing with all of this with your team and all the research about that? What was most interesting to you?
I would say like the first thing that really surprised me about Kincaid was how incredibly well educated he was about art. Like I really, you if you look at his sort of persona that he put out there, you would not expect for him to have that level of knowledge, but he cared deeply about art, and he knew a lot about art history. I mean, he he had tons and tons of art books in his home, and he would like read them every night. He would like he subscribed to all the, art periodicals and was kind of up on what was going on in the contemporary art world. So, he really was much more like brilliant, and kind of almost in an academic sense than his persona let on. And, I've been doing some Q&As with Susan Orlean recently in support of our Los Angeles theatrical premiere. And Susan said that, he came like right out of the gate with a question about the New Yorker's new editor. And she was like, oh, like, this is not what I was expecting. This person is going to keep me on my toes. So, he was much more brilliant than he led on through the folksy persona.
Well, which I always say this, you know, it's always about cause and effect. You can't have light without dark. And I was like, you just knew everybody has a dark side. It comes out whenever it comes out. But I just knew it was there because you can't be this prim and proper person with a perfect family. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I knew, especially as an artist, and
Yeah.
I loved the stuff. I just didn't know it was Kinkade that I liked.
Mm.
I found myself just looking at it too. And I always say this: the arts matter. Every Tuesday night, I say the arts matter.
Mhm. Yeah, they sure do. I mean, again, like the another question that the film sort of brings up, and I've been talking with a lot of people about, is like, what is art for? And who is art for? Is it for the artist, or is it for the viewer, And I think for Kincaid, he was really expressing something that just showed his incredibly strong powers of denial. In the film, we talk about, how he grew up in dire poverty and how his father was absent. And when he was present, he was a troubling presence. And my theory about Kincaid is that those created two like holes in his heart, and he needed to fill them with financial stability and love. And I think that those two things really drove him to create this empire that's, kind of improbably propped up by these kind of anodyne paintings of cottages and forests and, gazebos. And I think you can trace those two needs of his, like sort of down the entire trajectory of his life and his career. And, he was kind of like an Icarus figure, right? He flew too close to the sun, and then his wings melted, and he plummeted. It's like a pretty, it's a pretty kind of classic rise and fall story, but it has all of this visual material to support it. And it's like even baked into the artwork that he was publishing, and the artwork that he was refusing to like let anybody see. So it's very interesting. It's a very surprising story, I think. And it's kind of a Greek tragedy.
I love the interviews that you did with the daughters.
Mm.
I thought that was great. I always found it fascinating as children. I asked my mom once I saw it, "Did you have one of these?" She goes, "Yeah, I had one of these." I'm like, "I'm watching this great film on this because I didn't know."
Yeah.
And I just found it fascinating. I love sparkly things. People who know me know that. I'm always talking about the arts. My co-host, his dad started the Grand Ole Opry in
Oh,
Tennessee
oh,
with
amazing.
Eddie Arnold. He's an art collector. So I was telling him about that. He goes, "Yes, I know of that." He's been collecting art since the age of 12. His stuff is valued between, we figured it out because he's got two pieces that are worth $1 million originals. There's only three in the world. He has two of them. So he's had all this. So he's finally getting ready to sell stuff because he's 73 years old. I'm like, take a picture, it'll last longer. You can get
Yeah.
rid of it now. But he found it fascinating because he mentioned it, and I thought about it. There weren't any white characters in any of the cottages, and I thought that was, I mean, any people of color, and I thought
Yeah.
that was interesting.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating because more Christians seem to graduate towards that, and I found that fascinating too. I'm definitely not white, and I'm definitely not a Christian, but I'm like, wow, even I liked it.
Mm.
What was your reaction when you came up with all the research on that? Because it was fascinating to me as a viewer to see.
Mhm. It was really important to me. I wanted to be very balanced. And it was important to me that the fans would kind of get to have their say. So there's a section in the film that I think is almost like the heart of the film, where we have the critics kind of giving their, I think, pretty valid criticisms of Thomas Kinkade's work. And then right after that, like we deliberately put it right next to what we call the fan letters scene, in which all of these people who love Thomas Kinkade are writing to him and telling him how important his works are to them. And, so then we feature these three letters, one from an elderly woman with a terminal illness, one from a middle-aged lady who was suicidal, and one from a young lady whose sister was murdered in the Columbine High School massacre. And all of them are telling him how much solace his work brings to them. And I thought that was really important because, you can be snarky about him up until I think that point in the movie. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. And for me it's important to think about like you might not like the art, but you shouldn't be judgmental of the people who do like the art. So, you know, he was definitely speaking to millions of people.
Absolutely. I thought it was just like perfect timing for him. He just
Mm.
like comes out of the gate. That's how I saw it. And now that we've entered the art world, and my colleague is his art is just like taken off. He's only started since last June. We know the end game of how it's going to work, and that's a great thing. But
Mm.
we also know he's always been that great artist, but he wasn't tapped into it because he was busy putting a different empire together. So I'm looking at it from different points of view. Me, the newbie, I think I've only entered the artwork maybe the last 7 years. Now we're invited to everything around the world because of our numbers. My co-host, who's got one of the best art collections in the world, the one who his dad started the Grand Ole Opry, and then my colleague, my partner, because we know how much his art is going to be valued, which will be great. So it's interesting seeing from three different points of view and actually going to opening night at the LA Art Show and being around some of the world's best artists because they're on our shows. And I
Mhm.
thought that's why I loved your film so much, really, because I saw it from 3, 4 different angles, if that made sense.
Really awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's we so the you touched on the archival material before, and I will say that like when we discovered that first audio tape from 1974, we were blown away because it's just a 16-year-old Thomas Kinkade saying, "Okay, art historians, here are my thoughts. Here's where I'm at." And so the very first moment in the film is a section of that recording where he says, I'm an artist. I don't want to be like Van Gogh because I don't want to starve. But I do want to be Van Gogh, because I want to achieve like canonical greatness. And that tension between the commercial success and critical acclaim is something that I think every artist in all media struggles with. And so he kind of, in a way, because of those needs that he had for love and money, basically financial stability, like he just ended up, you know prioritizing the commercial side. And I think that that was really stressful for him, frankly. I mean, the demands of the business were really stressful, of course, as you see them mounting over the course of the film. But also, I think, and this is kind of what the point of what the film is like denying yourself full self-expression will destroy you. So, you keep on pushing down, the dark part of yourself, and like it's going to come out at some point.
Absolutely, you can't hide it. I always tell everybody when I'm watching a lot of the great movies out there that everybody makes those sacrifices, whether you're a celebrity or you're artist. And the family is the one that suffers because you want to have that legacy, unless you die young, obviously. But then again, you have to deal with all of these things. And as a kid, when you're growing up, you don't know what the sacrifices that your family is making for you until later,
Mhm.
which leads to I think the family was really happy that you made this film because they got a chance to see stuff that they didn't know about their dad, right?
They saw there was a little bit that they didn't know about in terms of artwork, right? There's this section with the college, the Berkeley girlfriend, Susan Boat, where, when I first showed the family the film, they were like, oh my God, like we've never seen any of these. And so that was, I think, kind of a pleasurable thing. There is also a moment that's kind of towards the end of the film, which is it's like it kind of goes by quickly, but it was actually a moment that we caught on camera where they discovered something that they hadn't seen before. And it's like this metal etched plate. And they just kind of are pulling it out of a drawer and they're like, the movie is doing something else at that point, but in the original footage, they were like, oh my God, I've never seen this one before. Like, this is new. So there's a lot of work in there. But in terms of the family telling the story, I think that they were ready. So it had been almost 10 years since he died when we first approached them about making the film. And I think that they had sort of done enough processing up to that point to be able to talk in the very brave and vulnerable way that they do in the film. And so I do want to commend them for being so courageous to share.
I got last questions for you. What do you hope the audience gets out of seeing this film? Because it's just like I said, it gets the four E's. It's entertaining, it's engaging, it's emotional, and it's educational. And that's what you need, I believe, when it comes to the arts, when it comes to most things.
Hmm. I didn't know about the four E's. I'm going to have to write that down. Thank you.
Well, we came up with it in 1994, as we've been using it ever
Okay.
since.
Okay, great. Yeah, actually, I'm glad you asked this question because I really actually have a very strong idea of what I want audiences to take away, which is the importance of treating each other with nuance and compassion, even if we have different beliefs and different backgrounds. I feel like our politics and our social media landscape and all these other factors are constantly encouraging us to dehumanize each other. And I think it's really important that we rehumanize each other because I think that that's the only way that we can move forward as a society.
And how do people reach out to you? Social media links, if you have any, and what do
Yeah.
you have coming up next?
Yeah. Well, immediately next, we're screening at Vidiots in Los Angeles, April 29th and 30th.
I
And
love idiots. I came out of
yes.
the home video world too.
Yeah, it's we're really excited. I'm going to be doing Q&As for both of those screenings. Um, and basically people can go to our website artforeverybodyfilm.com for a list of upcoming screenings. You can also There's also a link to click to request a screening if there's not one near you that you see. And that's helpful for us because it helps us keep track. But we're on Instagram and Facebook. The handle is Art for Everybody Film, all one word, no digits or special characters. Art for Everybody Film. And yes, if you follow us, you will also get updates on screenings and any news that we have.
Congratulations with what you've done, especially for your first feature. I mean, that's not easy for
Thank you.
one. But I was just like, I didn't know it was a woman who did it. And I
Oh,
said, well, even more props for her. Because I just knew all the work that went into you and your team doing it. And I just, wow, that's a lot. How
thank
many
you.
years did it take? Didn't know it was a year.
I know. And like I said, 0 stars do not recommend. Don't rush your film.
Wow.
I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and I really appreciate all
You
of the.
should be. I'm in North Carolina right now before I head back to Los Angeles. I got to go to Nashville. I got to go to Omaha. So I'm telling everybody about all the stoves, about all these great docs and everything that I've been seeing across country. But they're like, they didn't know about it. I'm like, well, it's coming. So that's why I needed to do this. And I'll be able to let them know where they can go and see it too.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Great talking to you.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be following you. And, I'm too bad. I love going to Vidiots when I can get the Silver Lake because that's the last of my heritage and how we started. And I keep that kind of going cross country because video stores should have never gone out of business.
Thank
Yeah. Thank you so much.
you.